Welcome to Manufacturing Enterprise. I'm going to talk to you quick about what the enterprise wheel is. So let's move through this. We're going to talk about the manufacturing enterprise concept, like why it exists, the components of the enterprise wheel, and the significance of some of the components, not all of them. So let's start with, start with the 6 components. The enterprise wheel is first and foremost customer-centered. And everything has to evolve around customer needs. So that's kind of number one. So make sure that if you're taking notes on this, which you should be, because you're going to have a quiz at the end of this unit where you have to recall some of this information, I would go create some type of Google Doc and maybe title it Enterprise Wheel Notes. And you can pause this at any point and do that. But the first thing I'd write in there is that it should be customer-centered. People and teamwork is another big piece. It's basically just to emphasize the importance of people working together. Shared knowledge is a big chunk, and this is a newer concept within the last few decades, I suppose, where between different components of the organization, people are sharing resources and sharing what they do. Identifying and understanding the key processes from manufacturing to customer support to the product and the process. That's these pieces in the outside here. Knowing your resources and responsibilities. And resources represents the inputs that you're putting into something. Responsibilities are the outputs. So what's your the goals that people have, their duties that people have. It could be ethical, it could be environmental, and then last is the infrastructure. Its success depends largely on its customers. And their needs. So knowing what kind of infrastructure and resources you need for that. All right, so let's move on. So again, number one, make sure you have this in your notes, that customer is at the center. That is where the focus has to be. If the end result, I'll say it this way, the end result has to contribute something to the value of the customer. Otherwise, what in the world are you doing it for? Because everything you're doing in manufacturing, you're trying to make money, you're trying to sell something to the customer, so it better add value to them so they buy more and they approve of what it is that you're trying to do. Next on the outside is we get into the people, teamwork, organization, and let me see if there's anything specific that I wanted to talk to you about that. All members just need to have know that they have kind of a stake into it. And so the enterprise, the company itself, is based on the people. And if you are going to sell your design, your company design, to somebody and say, hey, I want to raise some money for this because it's a sweet idea, then they would be really buying into you as a person first. So you got to be able to communicate that. And so that's why people is such a big part of the organization and the people that you have working for you. Moving on, shared knowledge and systems really is all about communication and the importance of communication. So down here, there's a little bit of a chart here in how people communicate with each other, how they communicate with the computers, and the ease of that, how computers communicate back with people, and then how they communicate with each other. If you are going to mill something, which we're going to do later on today, or not today, this year, you would first design a component in Inventor, which you've all used Inventor. Then we take it over to another program that we use, which interprets that Inventor file. So that's computer-computer communication, and that is kind of a significant piece. So back to any type of notes you're going to take, I'm going to scoot back here. These 6 pieces you should note and then really highlight that customer-centered is the most important. Beyond that, just kind of listen to what it is that we're saying. I might add a couple things here, but we don't need to add too much more to your notes. So we'll go back, we'll go to the next one, which is key processes. I believe this is the 4th option here. Which really explains the process. So in manufacturing, you need to have the process down, how it is that you're going to do stuff, how you're going to make the manufacturing a actual reality, and then again the process of how you're going to deal with the customers. That's all that fits into key processes. Then we go into teams and communications across the wheel. Every part of your enterprise, of your manufacturing enterprise, needs to be able to communicate with every other part. Maybe it's through team leadership, but in some way. So that if you have a design team and you have a manufacturing team, if they're not communicating well, the design team might not know that we can't build this. We don't have the right tool for that. So you can design it all you want, but we're never going to make it. So they have to be able to communicate with each other. That's really important. And then moving on, we have the virtual enterprise. What happens outside of the company? So sometimes you need to subcontract. You may have a design for something, but you don't have the equipment to actually make it. So you subcontract to another company, and they actually make it. And then again, effective communication is a really big piece. Then last is your resources, which you have resources and responsibilities. That's your inputs and outputs. Inputs is your money, that's capital. The knowledge that you are putting into something, your materials that you're putting into something. Your outputs is your finished goods. So there is a biology cell analogy to this, where you're taking in food and you're taking in fluids, and then you're outputting some type of motion, or you're outputting some type of energy. But if you don't like biology, that doesn't probably make any sense to you. So last, I believe, is we have the infrastructure. And the infrastructure is looking at global competition. Who else is out there competing with this in the external environment? What materials do you have available? How about energy? Can you pay more for green energy? Is that important to you? How are you going to transport your goods? All these things are part of the enterprise wheel, and super important if you're going to start a company, or if you are going to be working with a company on a high level, CEO, or the chief financial officer, the CFO. You need to really have a good understanding of how these things interrelate, because ultimately, if you have to put a lot of money into research, or into your workforce, or into transportation, and it's not efficient, then your company is not going to make money. So this whole enterprise wheel is centered around continuous improvement. And you're going to hear those words again. You probably heard them before, is continuous improvement. Everything really centers around that. And the enterprise wheel helps companies to see the whole big picture so they can work on continuous improvement. So here is the final big enterprise wheel, the current enterprise wheel, which is developed by the Society of Manufacturing Engineers. The logo is down here. And it's really used exclusively in manufacturing. And it's a really important thing for people that are deep into the business side. So what goes in the middle of the enterprise wheel? What is it? It's the customer. So you can probably see that right in your picture. And there we go.